In this video, I'm going to show you how I make my high protein pretzels. They are absolutely amazing and so much better than what you can buy in the store. All right, so the first thing we want to do is to create a poolish. If you've never heard of a poolish, basically it is a fermented starter, sorta. Kind of like a sponge maybe, if you've ever baked bread before. If you don't have a sourdough starter sitting around, this is a great way to create and add a depth of flavor, more yeasty, really good flavor to your breads. So we're going to make one for these pretzels. So what we need is 100 grams of flour. I'm using the King Arthur bread flour. 100 grams of warm water. And then we're going to need just a couple tiny little pinches of yeast. Mine's the dry active kind, so I'm literally just going to take it, put a little bit in there, maybe a little more. Ah, heck, one tiny little pinch for good luck. So once we get that all in there, we're going to want to stir it up really good. Want to get all of that into it so it could do its thing. So just stir, 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 because we're going to leave this on the counter overnight. For about 24 hours. Now you can get away with about 6 to 8 if you want. The longer you leave it, the better the depth of flavor will be. So I usually just do one early morning one day when I know I want to bake the next day and it's ready to go for me. So as you can see, there it is, looking good. We're going to leave it on the counter, put a lid on it. Now here's the thing, I don't like putting my lids on super tight. So as you'll see here, I keep one corner up, give it a little bit of air, and that's it.
24 hours later.
All right, so it's the next day, and the first thing we're going to want to do is to get our liquid ready. Okay, so I say liquid, and you're seeing tofu, and you're thinking, Ken, you've completely lost it. Yeah, well, we're going to liquefy this tofu. That is silken tofu. It is extra firm. It is packed full of protein. To it, we'll add 1 cup of Fairlife milk. Yeah, I use the Fairlife specifically because it is high in protein. So it is good stuff. Lactose free too, if that matters to you. So we're going to want to mix this up really good. I'm using my NutriBullet. It's quick, it's easy. I mean, just look at that. Boom, done. However, if you want to do it by hand, you can do it that way too. Just put it all in a bowl, grab a fork, start going at it. Once it gets to a certain consistency, you can switch to a whisk if you want. Heck, I've even done this in a food processor or just straight in the mixer itself. Either way, as long as you get it mixed up really good, the consistency will be quite creamy, as I'll show you right here. This is what you're looking for. That right there is packed full of protein. That is a good portion of our protein for these pretzels. Looking good. Now let's get everything else. So the next thing we're going to want to do is get our yeast awake and active. So into a 1/2 cup of Fairlife milk, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar and then our yeast. So that sugar is going to be food for them to get them awake, and away we go. So let's start putting everything together. First thing in is our 4 cups of bread flour. I use bread flour simply because, well, more gluten, but also more protein. Since we're making high protein pretzels, that's what we're wanting. So anything that could give us a little extra protein, we're going to use. To that, we're going to add our mixture, that tofu and Fairlife milk that we made earlier. Just pour it in, get it all in there. Doesn't matter where it's at, just get it into the bowl. That's the only thing that matters at this point. Once it's in there, we're going to grab that poolish that we made yesterday. Yeah, here it is. It's looking good. It's tradition to give it a smell because it's quite yeasty. Smells good, really. I mean, I really like the smell of it. I've baked enough with them, so I know what smells good and what doesn't. And man, that smelled great. You can see how thick that is. That's because we did a 1-to-1 ratio yesterday. Just want to make sure you're getting every last bit that you can into the bowl. After that, we're going to toss in our low sodium pink Himalayan sea salt, followed by the pea protein. And then lastly, it's that yeast mixture. Get all those good things in there. All right, so now it's time to get this mixing. Let's get that bread hook down into it, get it turned on. You want to go slow first just to get everything incorporated. As you can see, it's not looking too hot right now, but it will. You need to get it all mixed in little by little first, and then we'll turn up the speed. So as you can see, it's already coming together a little better, and that's where my camera decided to take a break.
Good freaking God.
And we're back. So I'm just going to let it knead and knead and knead as it dances across my countertop and I clean dishes. It's always a good time to get stuff like that done. Get your kitchen clean while you're letting your dough knead. So when I come back, I check it out. And I could tell a couple of things right away just by looking at it. It's going to be a little too tacky still, a little too sticky. So I'm going to want to put it back in there. You could see it sticking to the side of the bowl there. And it definitely does not pass the window pane test. When I pulled a little bit out there, it just snapped right away. So I'm going to go ahead and pack it down back into the bowl, put the hook back in, and we'll let it dance some more while we clean a little more. Look at that thing go. Yeah, I could hear it. I thought for sure it was just going to come and go completely off the counter, but it didn't. So after about, I don't know, about 6-7 minutes, I went back and you could see here that bowl is almost clean. That dough is looking good. So now that it's ready, there's a couple things we need to do. We need to get the biggest bowl we've got and hit it with some Pam. You can use some olive oil if you want, but I typically use Pam because it makes it quick and easy. The next thing we're going to want to do is lightly flour our work surface here, just so we can move this dough around a little bit. Again, it's going to be a little sticky. That flour keeps it from sticking to your hands. And then we're going to want to put some saran on it and put it to bed. I took off and ran some errands, went to Lowe's, got a few things done. As I did, we can see this dough is rising. Just look at it go. Isn't that awesome? All right, so now that the dough has risen and risen quite well, check that out. It's looking good. I like to turn it down onto my work surface, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toss it on that scale right there. I want to know exactly how much I got. So it looks like I've got 1,570 grams. I measure in grams, just makes it easier, honestly, since it's a big whole number. So 1,570, and I want to make 14, gives me just a little over 112 grams per pretzel. So I'm going to divide the dough, measure it out. This isn't a necessary step. I mean, you can just eye it, cut it into 14, what looks like equal pieces if you want. I just prefer to try to have it as uniform as possible. So once I get those all measured, then it's time to let the fun begin. So what I typically do is create a square here, and then I roll it tight, quite tight. If you saw my video on how to make high protein hamburger and hot dog buns, I do this pretty much the same thing for the hot dog buns, but then we want to roll it out. And now there's a few ways that you can do this. I try to stay fairly uniform most of the time, but a true Bavarian pretzel will have a middle part that's a little fatter than the rest of the log that you roll out. It's totally up to you, whatever you want to do. Honestly, it just depends upon how it's rolling out to me. Notice how that dough snapped back on me. Did you catch that? It's going to do that. So the best way to avoid that is to just let it sit for a little bit and then go back at it again. It'll continue to snap back from time to time. It's got a lot of gluten in it. We use that bread flour, right? It's high gluten, which gives us a lot of protein. So it could happen, and if it does, just let it sit for a little bit. Try to get it to be about 22 to 24 inches if possible. You seriously don't have to measure it. That's just how I do things. Trying to get uniformity again. So once you have it to the length you want, it's time to twist it up. And it's pretty easy. Create a U and then just twist the two pieces around and pull it down, and looky there. Isn't she pretty? Yeah, it's an easy thing once you've done it a few times. Now, the biggest thing you got to remember is, at least for me, being a home cook, they're not going to look the same every time. So let's watch that again, but slower this time. So when you're ready to twist it, create a U, bring it across once, twist it around again, and then pull it back and tuck it down there. Look at that. Looks great. But also notice how I pick it up when I put it on the sheet tray. I kind of grab it from the top, and what that does is it allows it to stretch a little bit. kind of making those holes a little bit bigger so it looks beautiful. Check that out. So then you just want to roll all of them out as best as you can, get them twisted, get them put onto your tray. And then once you've got them on your tray and you've got a full tray here, then we're going to want to let them sit and rise again. So what we want to do is we want to cover it with a damp cloth and just set it aside for at least a half an hour. They'll puff up really good, which they will when they cook too, but we're going to need to do this. And while it's sitting there, that gives us a chance to roll out the rest of our batch. And it's just pretty much the same thing. Roll them out, twist them, put them on the tray. And then once we get it all full, it's time to toss a damp cloth on it and let it sit too. This would be a great time to turn your oven on, get it preheating up to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 218 degrees Celsius. While those rise, we're going to want to get a pot of water on the stove and bring it up to a boil. I'm using my Dutch oven. Honestly, any pot will work. To which you're going to want to add 2/3 of a cup of baking soda. Now, traditional pretzels use a lye bath. It's actually kind of caustic and it can be a pain in the butt to use, so I just use baking soda. Once you've got it up to a boil, notice it's not a raging boil, but it's boiling pretty good. It's time to let these guys go for a swim. So I'll put a couple in at a time because they're gonna puff up. You'll notice that they're definitely gonna puff up. So they're gonna get bigger. So depending upon how big your pot is how many you can put in. I put in a couple at a time usually, and that's about it. Now you're only gonna want these to be in there about 15 to 20 seconds roughly. And notice how I flip them over as well. Often I'll go ahead and put them in upside down. That way it makes it easier when I bring them out. Shake off the water and then set them on my cooking tray. If you're wanting to add salt, this is when you want to do it because it's wet, so it'll stick to it. Sometimes I do. Often, like I am here, I'm just using potassium chloride as it gives me that salt flavor without the sodium. From there, we're going to want to toss them into the oven. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, honestly. It depends upon your oven, how good yours is. Ours isn't that good at all. Typically, it should only take about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. Ours usually takes longer to get a good golden color on it. I do like to check it from time to time, maybe turn the trays. But once they're looking good, it's time to pull them out. And just look at those things. Notice how much they puffed up. Notice how golden brown they are. Oh my goodness. There is no egg wash on that at all. That is simply from that baking soda bath that we gave it. It helps gelatinize the outside of the pretzels and then gives it a good golden color when you bake them. Yeah, that's why we do it, and it's totally worth that step. Just make sure you don't leave them in that water too long, otherwise you'll end up with something more like a bagel instead of a pretzel. Just look at that. Are you seeing this? Check that out. Absolutely awesome. You can get them a little darker than this if you like. My wife and I don't really like them super dark. Check out this picture. It'll show you how dark you can really get these. I like them this way, good and golden brown. They have amazing flavor. Just check this out. Just look at this. Ooh, it's hot. Look at it. That is spectacular. Yeah, these things are amazing. Hot, nice and fluffy. So good. Packed with protein. Let me show you what the totals are right over here. This one has a little bit of salt on it, so it's a little bit different than what's showing over there. It's got a little bit more sodium in it. Most of them I just put potassium chloride on them. If it's for me, gives me a little bit of that salty flavor without the extra sodium. Great high protein pretzels for when you're wanting something that you think maybe you shouldn't have. It's just like a great treat, but it's packed with protein and amazing. I hope you make them. I hope you enjoy them. If you do, comment down below and let me know. As always, if you haven't hit like yet, please do. Don't forget about that subscribe button as well if you haven't already done that. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to follow me on my journey to become a fat guy no more, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit that bell so you can get notifications every time I upload a new video. Just look at that. Those are so freaking good. So freaking good. So hey, here's another great video to watch. Yeah, click right there. Click on that one. Give it a watch. Enjoy. Thank you so much.